But we just figure with the time and there's a lot of information, and of course we want to make sure that we can break on time for lunch. We're going to go ahead and get started, and I just want to say good morning, welcome, thank you for joining us today. This is obviously a very important and timely topic, and I don't need to say a whole lot because we're going to get into it, and I'm going to ask Shannon to get us started.
All right, everybody, welcome. Thanks again for joining. My name is Shannon Abbott. I'm the program manager at Common Cause Michigan. She, hers, or they, them pronouns. Either are fine with me. Our agenda today, we're going to be first, obviously, we've done some registration, getting settled in. Program is starting now. We're going to do some introductions and a quick icebreaker, which I think is you still, right?
Okay.
We're going to do an issue refresher on documentary proof of citizenship because that's the main topic that we're going to be asking folks to help share stories around for today. But everything we learn today is going to be something that you can take and use for any issue that you care about. We're going to talk about the how and why of storytelling. We'll have lunch. We'll have about 30 minutes for that. And then we are going to practice actually writing, crafting, and sharing our stories together a little bit later, and we should wrap up by 3 o'clock. So I'm going to first bring up Linda to talk about the 101 of documentary proof of citizenship here. And after that, we'll do a quick icebreaker to kind of break it up and get everybody to get to know each other.
Cool. Just I can do that. Okay, folks. So, real quick explainer about the issue we're all here to talk about. Has anyone heard of the SAVE Act before? Yeah. All right, cool. Everyone is really in the same space. So, basically, what the SAVE Act, the Save America Act, the MEGA Act, the Americans for Citizen Voting Petition, all of these many different names to describe the same thing, which is politicians and special interests trying to control who can and cannot exercise their constitutional right to vote. So the way that they're doing that right now is through what's called documentary proof of citizenship, which are mandates to show very specific and often difficult to obtain, they basically show your papers rules. Difficult to obtain documents to prove citizenship. These policies will make voting harder for everyone. I want to make that very clear. At the minimum, everyone will be mildly inconvenienced by these, but they are especially designed to target younger voters, low-income voters, people of color, voters with disabilities, and anyone who has changed their legal name, which most often is married with. What documentary proof of citizenship actually is, these are the examples of it. For most people, it would be a valid U.S. passport. It can't be an old one that expired 10 years ago because you haven't traveled for like 20 years. Birth certificate that is certified. As someone explained to me once, it's not the cute little thing you get at the hospital with like your little baby's footprints on it. That is a souvenir. That is not documentary proof of citizenship. If that's what you've got, you do not have documentary proof of citizenship. And it also has to match your current valid government photo ID. So if your birth certificate has one last name and your driver's license has another, you do not have valid documentary proof of citizenship. If you are naturalized citizen or adopted or something like that, there are some other ways to prove citizenship. But again, these aren't necessarily documents that everyone just has and is easily accessible to every person. There we go. So, in particular, the biggest threat in Michigan right now is the Americans for Citizen Voting Petition. And what that particular instance of this policy would do is require that every Michigan voter re-register to vote with documentary proof of citizenship in person at their local clerk's office before the 2027 general election. So that means rural voters, seniors, voters with disability, or who do not have access to transportation will still have to find a way to access their local clerk's office, which, especially for rural voters, could be hours away and not open during regular business hours to register to vote. And these include people who are already registered, proven citizens. They would still have to re-register to vote with this documentation. Absentee voters would have to expose their personal information in the mail, like their social security number or sending their certified birth certificate, which, as we all know, mail be mail. They do their best, but there is no guarantee that stuff gets where it's trying to go. Voters who don't have that documentation already will have to pay out of pocket and go through whatever bureaucracy is necessary to obtain that documentation. If you were born in the city of Detroit versus the rest of Wayne County, you know that those levels of bureaucracy get super weird sometimes for no clear reason. It's a whole thing. And then our local clerks will have to implement a 2-tiered voting system because these restrictions would apply to some elections but not all, specifically state elections but not federal. So, for example, in this midterm election, we have state offices on the ballot and federal offices. If you're on one list but not the other, you're getting 2 different ballots. You're getting mixed up in it's confusion, it's chaos, and it's not necessary. Who does this impact? These policies will impact every single voter. I give the example of myself. I am incredibly privileged. I have a valid U.S. passport. I'm on a first name basis with my local clerk, and I ride my bike up to City Hall all the time. And I have a flexible job that gives me time off where I can do that in the morning. At most, this is a half hour out of my day. My grandmother, who does not drive, who was married and divorced, does not have a marriage certificate anymore. She does not actually have documented proof of citizenship. She's never needed a U.S. passport. So I don't know how, if this is implemented, my grandmother would still be able to vote. 9% of voting eligible citizens in the U.S. lack immediate access to documented proof of citizenship. In Michigan, that translates to 700,000 voters who would be blocked by these policies. For reference, 700,000 votes would change the results of every single presidential election going back to 1964. So that's a huge impact overall. Yes, Nancy?
She could apply for it. Your family member could apply for a birth certificate.
Yes, she could. If you've ever tried to walk an 85-year-old woman through the different aspects of this, that's a lot of work.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of back and forth for either me or my parents or whoever is going to walk her through that. And it's not something that we can ask everyone to do. What else do we have here? Oh, yeah. Folks who have changed their names, their birth certificate no longer prove citizenship, so that's extra hurdles for them. Clerks and election workers could actually be held criminally liable if there are ever any errors in this paperwork or any mistakes that happen. Elections will, in general, be harder and more expensive to run. Just think of, as you're saying, Nancy, if we have to educate everyone on how to get this documentation, that's not a cheap thing to do, nor is it an easy prospect. And taxpayers are footing the bill for these changes. The cost from the Secretary of State just for educating and retraining election workers is millions of dollars. And that's not how much it would cost to train and educate voters themselves. So yeah, that's basically what is at threat here. We're looking at hundreds of thousands of voters who could be potentially disenfranchised, and that's why we are coming here today to talk about it, share stories so that other people get that information, and we can stop these policies from moving forward. Shannon, I will turn it to you.
Thank you. So I'm actually gonna bring Angela back up here in just a second. But something that's really important is there's a lot of misinformation around the SAVE Act, around the ballot initiative that has to do with documentary proof of citizenship. People are going to be impacted by this. If you don't already have that stuff, again, it's a financial burden on you, which can kind of equate to a poll tax, whether it's, $10 for your documents, or if it's $165 to get your passport, or whatever that looks like for you. Plus, you're taking time off of work to potentially to go to your clerk's office, and you maybe need to get transportation to go there. So think about all the ways that either you individually or the people within your communities, the people that you care about, could be impacted by this, because it really is massive. Angela, I'm going to bring you up. We're going to do a quick icebreaker with everybody, just to kind of loosen us up before we get into the actual story share portion of things.
Sounds like a plan. Okay, hello, and welcome. I love that we're growing, getting this out, and more people are showing an interest because we understand how important this is. So as we're talking about working together, I realize we don't all know each other, right? And so we won't continue to be siloed. We're going to continue growing and building together. So with that, I have an icebreaker, and with the icebreaker, I will ask you, if you could have any superpower, what would it be? I'll repeat that. If you could have any superpower, what would it be and why? And with that, if you would please say your name, pronouns, and if you're with an organization. All right. I'm gonna put you in the hot seat. Let me
Okay.
start.
Superpower.
What's your name?
First of all, normally Clement, that works from Detroit Change Initiative. Superpower would probably be like the same power as Blue Marvel. Cosmic engines.
Yeah.
And why? Like, what would you do with that?
You can change time, reality. You can change anything from science to Adam himself and everything like that. So,
Okay.
I like it.
That's what's up. Okay.
Hi everyone, my name is Neely Wimberly. I'm with the Elite Conservation Voters, and I would say if I could have any superpower, it would be shape shifting. Just because in my head, I'm a little bit greedy, so I just want all of the superpowers, so I can just shape shift to have them. So that I can fly, I can be small, I can be anything because I can shape shift into it. So
I like it.
oh,
Don't be shy. You're not shy.
Michael Keller, the Change of Midnight Coalition. If I had superpowers, I would take slavery out of Michigan's Constitution.
Okay.
I like it. We don't even need an explanation of that.
I know.
Do you want to go? No, you go.
Hi everyone, I'm Nancy Wellinger. I'm with Indivisible Metro Detroit, and I like yours because song is that's a good one. But I would like to be able to push back time when I want to. Like, if I say something really stupid, and if I run into somebody in my car, that'll back about 20 seconds. It wouldn't happen. So I want to bend time. That's
And what's your name again?
Nancy.
Nancy.
Are you comfortable introducing yourself?
sure.
do
Why
this.
not just walk right in?
Yeah.
I'm Dee Rinke from Healing Word Artist, and I'm guessing I'm supposed to, if I could be queen for the day, what could I
If
be?
your superpower, yeah.
My superpower.
Oh, animal love.
Okay.
I love that.
Love that.
Jerry Diggs. I'm kind of a volunteer with a number of organizations, League of Women Voters, Voter Debt Politicians, and Western Week NAACP. I think I would be more self-reflective if I knew other people's perceptions of me, and then that way I could self-correct as necessary.
I like it.
Hi, I'm Larry Biggs, and we're husband and wife, and I am also a part of a lot of different organizations. I feel like we're retired now, but we're busier now than we were when we were working. It's that we're that involved. I think my power would be invisibility, so that I could go to places where I would want to know what people are saying and doing, and not necessarily want them to know that I'm there. That it wouldn't be in all cases, but yes, there's a lot of times that I'd like to be that mouse in the room, or that little fly in the corner, or just total invisibility, and allow me to hear things that are being stated, especially by the opposing people. So.
Larry the super spy.
I'm Melanie Troyer, I'm the Michigan Director for Jews for a Secular Democracy. We're all about protecting the separation between religion and government. I've spent an embarrassing amount of time wishing I had this superpower. So on the Umbrella Academy, they had one person who she would say, I heard a rumor that you, and then the person would just think it's their own idea. So I want that to be my superpower, and then I will move to Washington, D.C. and spend a lot of time on the couch.
I like it. Hop over to the other side real quick.
Q, it's on you.
As Benji just said, I'm Q, I'm a voter access for all coalition. I think my superpower would have to be teleportation. traveling recently, you know, I've had a few car crashes and I've been in airports, and if I didn't have to go through all that, if I could just blink and be where I need to be, I think that would be the ultimate.
Yes.
I'm Katie Page. I'm with Indivisible Metro Detroit, and if I had a superpower, I would remove suffering from the earth, and then I would retire.
Love it. Ben, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. I'm Ben Gardner. I'm with Outvoting's local. If I had a superpower, I would make sure that we would have 100% voter turnout and representatives that actually did the work for the people. That's a superpower.
Your t-shirt come true, your sweatshirt
Exactly.
come true.
Hi, I'm Noelle. I'm with Indivisible Metro Detroit as well. And I'm going to go with flight. It would save me a bunch of time, and it would be really cool.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Anybody else back there want to introduce themselves?
Hi, my name is Gary Keeler. Superpower invisible.
Yes.
I was want to understand, how come we are revisiting the 15th Amendment? See, we're all getting the right to vote.
Yeah.
How is it now being taken away from us? And we have the power.
True.
That I don't understand. We have the power. That's the biggest thing that we got to remember. And we need to get back into our system. So we learn our history. Learn everything that they don't have the power. We can take it from them.
True.
Right.
Introduce yourself too.
Hello, I'm Mitchell Kowalski. I'm with Progress Michigan. I'm here just taking photos and documenting whoever's willing to share the story today. I didn't really think about my superpower, but I'm just gonna go with speed because I am slow and uncoordinated.
You need to add the coordination into it too, because speed without coordination is dangerous.
I would both go with time would be hopefully good.
And Melinda.
Hi everyone, my name is Melinda. I'm with Voters Not Politicians. And if I had a superpower, it would probably be tactile telekinesis. I tend to drop things just from like I will pick it up and it will be in my hand and then it will be on the floor. And I don't know what happens in between that. I would like that to stop happening.
Do you want me to do
You
it
go.
too?
Yeah.
Shannon, I've already introduced myself to y'all. I'm with Common Cause Michigan, and my superpower, I think, would be the power of being able to speak and understand any language, including animals, including sign language, because I really struggle with language. And I want to just be able to communicate with everybody.
Love that.
Yeah.
And I'm Angela Davenport, Executive Director of VAC, Voting Access for All Coalition. And if I could have a superpower, I would love to be able to turn pain into healing. And I think that's, I think that's what I'd like to do. So thank y'all. Thank everybody for contributing. I think we have one more person. I don't know where she disappeared to. But Shawana, I saw her come in.
Now the superpower.
That was her superpower. She's invisible. She's invisible. She turned invisible. Right.
That's so funny.
Okay, thanks, Ben. Thank you.
Well, we're going to get started into talking about why we actually share stories and the how of how we share. Don't go away. You're on this part. So we're going to talk again, like, why do we tell stories? Because I know a lot of our organizations, we talk about the power of your voice and story sharing all the time, but we really do it to organize and communicate our values and to really motivate people to take action or motivate them into understanding and learning about a different side of things that maybe they didn't know before. So it's all about humanization because we can connect to others through the human side of really any topic. And you never know whose story is going to connect to somebody. Mine might not connect to you, but somebody else's might. And so the more of us that do this work, the more humanization you see, the more diversity you see in people's stories themselves, and the more you see yourself in other places. We all have different perspectives, experiences, and different ways that we could be impacted by our situations, issues, and everything that we're dealing with, including a lot of the policies that we currently have and that they're trying to push on us right now. And then the emotional impact of it. I mean, they can really resonate deeply to individuals. I know sometimes I hear people's stories and without me even realizing why, it just breaks me down into tears, you know, or it gets me fired up and gets me like, yo, we gotta do something about this. So the best stories really can connect to people and have an impact. And again, your story might not do that for everybody, but you can capture at least one person that you can connect to in that way, the better. You want to do this one?
Sure. Okay, so why do we tell stories? I'll say, for example, I didn't recognize it back then, but my grandmother, she would tell me stories that I didn't listen to when I was younger, but that I remember now. Even like when I'm getting sick, right? Lemon and honey. And just why is that so important? I can share that. So we use that to connect. We see ourselves in friends and families. And so we know that when we're telling stories around documentary proof of citizenship, it's not just going to be the facts that are going to connect to people. It's what are the stories. We take people from the shelters and we take them to vote. Under documentary proof of citizenship rules, we would not be able to do that because they use a face sheet to vote. I have real stories of real people, as you all do as well.
What's a face sheet, Angela?
Yeah, thank you. So a face sheet is at certain facilities, instead of having an ID, it qualifies as an ID with their information on it, their detailed information. So like we were able to make contact with the clerks, letting them know we were coming in with a group that didn't have ID, but they had this. And these are state facilities, so this, was allowable, but under new rules, it would not be. Okay, next slide. Okay, so bringing our own seat to the table. So each of us, this gives us an opportunity to share the hope and how that would reflect us best. So we have a say in shaping our future. So in telling my story, I'm able to, what occurred by taking people to vote, I can also say what would have happened if they couldn't. But what did occur is they were able to. Many people for the very first time ever. And that is the part of the story that's beautiful, that's healing. But if you take that away, what happens? And so that's what I use as my connection story.
I'm going to add to that too, real quickly, is, in general, I'm going to generalize this. Whether it's democracy work, whether it's environmental work, whether it's reproductive justice, whether it is any particular issue or topic that you can think of, people who look like me tend to be the voices at the table, or who look like some of the other folks in this room. People who are white, people who tend to be on the older side, people, especially males, tend to be making a lot of the decisions. And so the more we can get our stories out there, the more we can influence people. That is just a way, even if you don't have a chair at the table, that is a way of scooching your own chair up. Be like, I'm not going to let you tell me what is going on. And especially, we're being in Detroit, like there are so many people who don't have a voice in what is happening in the Black community. We have obviously a really large Middle Eastern population. We have tons of people that I don't see represented. I live in Lansing. I don't see them represented in Lansing on a daily basis, right? And it's so important to be able to put that out there, whether it's on social media, whether it's in newspapers or whatever platform you want, or even being able to show up at meetings to share your story and say, no, you're here to represent me. You're going to listen to me. This is why it matters, and this is how it impacts me.
And another component of that is that it brings us together. What we've seen in the justice space for so long is if you're working on environmental, you're here. Reproductive justice, here. Voting rights over here. And that separated us and played into a lot of false narratives, and really connecting, building this bridge is what sharing our stories do, because now I'm able to connect with you in a way that I didn't know you before, but I can identify with what you're saying and what your experience has been.
And what does that do?
Yes. Okay.
And that works.
Yes, so stories motivate people, whether it's an individual or it's showing up as a group, and that's why we're here today, is to motivate people who may say, because Naomi, one time when we were talking, she said, well, I'm not, like, this wouldn't directly affect me, like, individually. And some people may say, well, I have a passport, or I have the ability to get these documents, but what it did was say, well, listen, there are people that you know, people that you care about that do not have that ability or will have those barriers. And so now we're able to also frame that connection of, even though it doesn't directly impact or affect me, I care because it affects someone else. And so thinking of that too, when you're thinking about your story, it doesn't just have to be you in that story, it's the community that you care about and that you're involved in.
Yeah, absolutely. You might see your mom, or you might see your brother, or your neighbor, or somebody like that in the stories that you hear.
You want to add something else to that?
I don't think so. I don't think so. But I mean, we know why stories matter, right?
Absolutely.
We know that it matters because the biggest impact really tends to come from people who have been or will be directly impacted, but it's not always those folks, just like we talked about a second ago here. It is also, the biggest impact tends to come from people with power, whether they're business leaders, whether they're elected officials, whether they are union leaders, whether they're people in a community who are just talking to folks all the time, organizing, connecting, like all of the people in this room, to really be able to say, you know what, we're going to uplift this, we're going to share it, and we're going to put the pressure on for whatever we need to do to either pass something or stop something, right? And everything in between. And then the people who can sway the opposition or the undecideds, kind of those middle ground folks that can be like, you know, I think I grew up watching the Brady Bunch repeat all the time, and there was always that, well, gee, Dad, I never thought about it that way before. And that's kind of how I think about this, is you never know who on the undecideds or the opposite side you might be able to sway, because they were like, oh my gosh, I never really considered it that way.
And there's no story, no matter, like, it doesn't have to be a big story, right? It doesn't have to be that big thing that you think you need to say. It could be something so small that just connects with someone on an individual level. And I see we have Shalana joined us. I just quickly want you to say your name so everybody knows who you are.
I'm in Shalana.
And you're with?
Sally Crichton.
Okay, thank you for joining us. Thank you. So we all know each other because we're going to be sharing our stories and working together. And again, it doesn't have to be a big thing. So that's why it also helps that we're able to bounce these stories off of one another and share these experiences. You all know someone that would be impacted by this. You absolutely do, even if you don't directly think about it in the forefront of your mind. And so that's one of the reasons we're here.
So your story can come in so many different forms. Just like in books, TV, movies, you have a plot, you have characters, you have kind of that thing that you're trying to overcome, and then you have the moral of the story, right? Anytime we're sharing our own stories, we want to try to hit some of those points as well in the shortest, quickest, most concise way that we possibly can. The stories are always the most intriguing when there's an obstacle that people are facing. Anytime we're sharing our story about the issues, it's because there's an obstacle, right? Either something hasn't passed or something's about to get in our way. When we are talking about story sharing in the issue spaces, we don't want to make things up. We don't want to be fake about it just to get a good headline.
Because people can tell. Like, even if you don't realize it, they absolutely can. And so it's the authenticity of it, that it's your story and your experience. And that's why, again, it doesn't have to be this big thing as long as it's real.
Yep. So we want to give you some tools. A lot of times in the nonprofit world, you'll probably have heard of trainings on the story of self. That's something that we talk about a lot in this space, and that's like, why am I here and why am I doing this work, right? It's something that I was trained on, like, if I'm going in and I'm talking to a legislator, or if I'm tabling at an event and I'm trying to get people to engage with my organization, what even brought me to do this work, right? Like, what's your quick 15 to 30 second pitch on why you're doing what you're doing? But that is not the only part of sharing your story. What often gets left out is the story of us, which is all about your shared values and experiences, and the story of now, which is all about the strategy and action. In my opinion, you really want to try to hit all three of these anytime you're sharing your story, whether it's on social media in a 30-second or a minute 30 clip, or if it's in something bigger and longer, like an opinion piece or an interview or something along those lines. So we'll talk about that more in just a minute, but go ahead, you got a question.
No, go ahead. I went.
No, you can go. Ask your question. Do it up.
The storytelling piece, right? Shouldn't it be something before that? And the reason I say that is because I had to go through a healing process, right? Because I learned that if I can't feel myself, then I can't feel others. And I think that is what makes your story authentic. You know what I mean? And it's like, because I remember we was fighting, we was working on AJR-10 in Nevada. We were working against slavery under Nevada's constitution. And I was trying to bring a light to post-incarceration syndrome, you know, the after effects of prison.
Yeah.
So I remember being up talking, but I felt nervous because this was like my first time actually getting in organizing. And I didn't understand agitators. And so it was really agitators in there who was against getting slavery out of Nevada's constitution. So they started asking me questions about, you know, they was calling me criminal, they was calling me these things, and I kind of went into a shell and froze. And then I realized, you know, people just invested in me. That's why I realized I had to actually heal from those scars to be able to tell my story authentically, but I had to actually listen to my body. And that's why I realized, you know, I do a lot of somatic practice too, that you can't feel others until you can feel yourself.
You're spot on, and I'll tell you, when I first started doing this work at Michigan Liberation, it took me, I could not tell my story without crying. And I didn't know why. Like, I couldn't. So I took that as, oh, I have a fear of public speaking or other things. But what it was I had to first, like you said, heal, right? I had to first understand how to tell my story. How does my story fit into these pieces? And I had to be real about it. And so now I've been able to do that, but I was afraid. And so I see your point, Marcus, and I think that there's different ways that we're doing this, right? It could be with a one-to-one, and you use that as a way to connect with someone who may not understand voting rights or documentary proof of citizenship. So you break it down on a one-to-one, but then there's also times where maybe you only have 5 minutes, right? That you can go somewhere and talk about it, that you can't get into, you know, like what you would if you were really connecting with someone, but yet you're still able to share your story of self within that limited amount of time. And so I think that's what this is today, because right now, when we go into different spaces, we may not have all of the time that we want as organizers to be able to do this, but yet we're able to still find an approach that we can share our story in a limited amount of time to make that connection with someone so that they feel that, and then they maybe feel propelled to share their story or to understand how this was harmful and how these barriers would hurt.
Yeah, absolutely. And I really appreciate you bringing that up, because I'll say, like, I know I'm up here and I'm talking about story sharing right now, but I really struggle to share my story. Partially because I'm like, my story isn't good enough, right? Angela already said, any story, and I didn't know this. And a part of it is because I haven't necessarily broken through all of the cracks and challenges, even on this, and what that means for me, because I am privileged and I have certain things that I can do, but I really care about how this is going to impact other people. And so being able to know I care about this issue, I know it's a problem, now I need to self-reflect and I need to start thinking about what this story means for me. And sometimes you don't get to that until somebody pushes back on you. And then you're like, ooh, why why am I feeling this way about it? Now I need to take that back and be like, I thought I had my story down, but I really need to think about this a little bit more because that stopped me in my tracks, right? And that's where we can start thinking about, okay, well, why did this affect me? Is it because this is something that like is about me, or is it about them, or is it because it impacts my community? And just start asking yourself the questions. And then what do I want to see out of that? Because people are obviously thinking this way, and that's a problem. How do we want to retrain them to think about it differently? Or like, what could I say in the future to be like, you know, I really wish you would think about it this way because X, Y, Z, you know? So we'll talk about this in a second, but I want to a little bit more in a second, but I want to talk for a quick moment about what types of avenues you're going to be sharing your stories and just generally as individuals. So one thing we hear about a lot is audio, which is typically best paired with a visual. Like a lot of times if you're like watching an ad as an example, maybe there's somebody talking and sharing their story, or just talking about the issue on an audio recording, and there's B-roll and just like clips or images of something in the background that were paired up with it to try to like build that connection and to try to maybe create some emotion in a different way around it. It could be pictures, graphics, a video, it could be something on social media, an ad, or all different types of forms. It can be recorded on its own, it can be pulled away for testimony, it can be pulled from speeches, all sorts of different things. You want to cover video?
Sure. And so we have different forms of video. And so video is what we're going to be doing today. And so we have a couple different forms: professional, organic, raw. And so this is, again, a way of connecting with folks. It could be you talking to people, you being at an event, you doing a TikTok or social media video. There's so many different types of forms, even animation with audio voiceovers. And so we have long form and short forms. And then the short forms we know work best on social media, right? This says 2 minutes or under. I would even say like 30 seconds
People's
today
attention
because
span.
of the attention span.
There's
Yeah.
actually just a tool you'll learn about soon limits it to about 90 seconds. So you'll learn more about that tool. But sometimes these options will cut you off. So
Yeah. And one of the things with trying to always cater your story around short form is even if you decide to go to a town hall or something, or a hearing in Lansing about
Give
bills
public
that you hear
comment.
about, to give public comment, they limit you on your time. And sometimes they say you're going to have 5 minutes, and then you go there, and so many people showed up that they're like, you have 1 minute max. And you're like, oh, I wasn't prepared for that. So the more you can kind of know yourself and your story ahead of time, the more you can shift and get your key points out in whatever time frame you need.
Okay, an approach that uses multiple forms of storytelling is always more effective. So the where and the when to share your stories. So there's 2 different buckets: reactionary response or planned intentional. So like when I gave public comments, mine was planned, right? It was more intentional. But there are also times where you have that reactionary response. But when you're comfortable and when you sort of know your story, or that elevator pitch that you have, even when reacting or responding to someone, you still have that to grab from. And I'll just give you an example is that when I talk to people about voting, especially people who've been formerly incarcerated or justice involved, I said that until it was that I was arrested and before a judge, I did not realize how important it is to know who my judge is. This is my why. This is how I got into this work. When I was staring it straight in the face, and it was going to affect the rest of my life. And so anyway, there's different types of stories: long form, medium, short form. And you want to talk a bit about that?
Yeah, these are, if we're looking at this in a written format, short form would be like a few sentences on social media. A lot of times you'll see reactionary things on social media. Like, the House at the federal government just passed the SAVE Act, and we are so angry, and blah 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 blah. And somebody's like cursing in their social media, but maybe it doesn't give you any insights as to why it matters, and it doesn't give you an action to take. It's just like, oh, I'm so mad about this right now.
Like an op-ed or something like that, because
Well-
it says written.
Well, yeah, but social media is a way to do written as
Right.
well, and so your short forms are typically on social media. Your kind of more medium links are, maybe a couple of paragraphs. They can be up to 4 pages long. Those are more of your opinion pieces, your op-eds, your letters to the editor, which our newspapers in Michigan do accept these from the general public, and most of our organizations are happy to help you guys craft these as well on issues that you care about. And emails, blogs, that sort of thing as well are really great kind of medium form versions of these. And those tend to be more planned and intentional. And then your long form, those are things that are actually hard to get people to read. And I know we're in a bookstore right now, but those tend to be books. Those tend to be reports or research papers and things like that. Unfortunately, we live in a society where people don't read things that are more than a paragraph or two long. And so we really have to make sure that we are hitting people in all of these different spots, and that we are not just like saying, I'm going to write a research paper and hope the entire community will look at this, because that's not the way the world works. So we really need to have a variety of all of these that we get to. So we'll talk a little bit more. I mentioned the story Self, Us, and Now earlier. These really all connect to each other. Your story of self, like why am I called to do this, connects you into your community, which is the story of us. What does this look like for all of us? What is our shared experience, and why should we all care about this together? Because I shouldn't be doing this work alone, and neither should any of you. And once we know how it impacts not just Shannon, but maybe it impacts more than Shannon, then we can say, okay, this is urgent and we need to act, which is what takes us into the story of now. This is where we're like, okay, this is happening, this is what we're doing about it, we need to do something before it's too late. And then again, it ties back in, that action ties into your purpose and why you're doing this in the first place. I'm doing this because I want to see this thing happen. So it's kind of a full circle effect. All right, so how to craft your story. We'll talk a little bit more about each of these. You want to go through these?
Yep. Why you were called to do what you do. This is who you are, how you're connected to this issue, right? Your values, what's inspired you to even be here today, right now. There's a reason why on a Saturday where there's so much that we could be doing, multiple different types of events or resting, right? But you're here. So why are you connected to this? Story of us. What has your community been called to do? And this is how the others around us, the community that we're involved in, are impacted, right? Our shared purpose, goals, and vision. What do we want to see for our community and for one another? And our story of now is, what choice do people need to make now on this issue? This is a sense of urgency. What are we doing about it? Whether it's individually, collectively, the hope and the urgency of it.
Are we looking just to tell people that it's a thing and educate them on it? Or are we actually trying to get them to persuade them to our side? Are we trying to get them to come take action to us? Anything that we do, whether it's get out the vote, whether it's advocating for against a ballot initiative or any policy, or just like things that we want in our own community, really think about, what are you looking to get out of it? Do we just want people to know? Like, do we just want you to know, hey, your polling locations is XYZ and you should have a plan to vote? Or do we want you to do more than that?
And I will say that there's different steps that people take. Someone may not just, if you just go and they don't know too much about the issue and say, hey, I need you to come give public comment, people may be taken aback by that. So there's different ways of engaging people, and really sharing your story, and them sharing theirs is a great way to find that engagement.
And I will say, I believe we shared it with y'all ahead of time in an email, but we'll also be sharing the slides with you after. One of the things you'll see are some slides we're not going to show right now, which are some sample social media posts. Those little videos that are connected in the slides, they are not all about this topic. But the reason I put them in there is it's a combination of people telling their story about things that matter to them. Some of them cover all of this stuff and some of them don't. And I want you to think about, as you're hearing stories from other people, was there something that you were left missing? Did it not hit the mark because maybe somebody wasn't authentic? Did it not hit the mark because somebody didn't tell you why they were brought to do the work? Or maybe they really inspired you, but you don't know what to do next because they didn't give you a call to action or something to tangibly do with it. So there's a combination of those that you can take a look at. We can even show you while you're here.
And sometimes, like at meetings, you may go to a meeting where they've given you all this great information, but what's that next step?
Absolutely. So real quick, I didn't need to skip all those slides here. I must have shut some of them off, so we'll come back in a second. But this is all of us and our partners that are hosting this today. Give me just a second. What did I do here? Bam, bam, bam.
Welcome to our store.
Go back. What happened? Sorry, y'all. Okay, so I'm gonna come over here real quick because this is not wanting to work for me for a second.
That's okay. That's okay.
Okay, there we go.
We're good. Okay.
Okay, so we've already talked about this a little bit. Your story of self, your story of us, your story of now. Is your story about maybe how you and your family are impacted? Is it about how you are inspired by the impact of others and how it might impact people that either you know or you don't know but care about? Is it about the urgency of acting in this moment, and is it about the world that you really want to see? So are we trying to inspire people into like what the future could be? So I'm going to give you an example. This is my story, and I'm really bad at sharing my story. I know I probably shouldn't be out here sharing it right now if I'm so bad at it, but it's constant practice and kind of talking through this. So for me, I broke my story about documentary proof of citizenship and why it matters into the story of self. So for me, I work in the pro-democracy space and voting rights, and I see the challenges constantly that people already have. My sister, as an example, needs support because between her job, her health issues, and her 2 kids under 10, one of whom has severe autism, she has to plan super far in advance to even be able to vote as it already stands. So for me, the story of us portion of this is that she, like many other parents and people with health issues, have a lot to juggle already. The burden of additional time to collect and get paperwork to prove citizenship, and finding the time to physically go in and do just that, just to exercise her right to vote or any parent's right to vote, will impact her ability to do so as well as millions of others. The story of now in my story is that we have a chance to stop this before it gets to the ballot. I'm sharing because I'm asking other people to know before they sign the ballot initiative, because there are people out there collecting signatures. So I want people to read it, and I want them to know before they make their decision to add their name to that ballot initiative, because if we can stop it before they get enough signatures, then it won't be on the ballot in November. If they get enough signatures, my story will shift a little bit from here. And I want people to really think about the many ways that, you, me, and other people that we know could be impacted by this, which is ultimately placing barriers for people being able to vote. Another way of looking at the same story, which can be shared in a slightly different way, is through a challenge. I'm worried about my sister who's able to vote, who might not be able to vote if this passes. The time burden of proving her citizenship, including the fact that she's a married woman, has a changed last name. On top of that, again, her challenges with 2 young kids, facing her personal health issues, her working a full-time job, plus, and her youngest being autistic, finding time is probably her biggest hurdle. The choice that people can make around this is to make sure that people know about this before it's too late, or to take time off maybe I need to take time off to help her so that it will clear up time for her to be able to go and get her documents and stuff like that in. Maybe I could watch her kids while she does that so that she can do it because of all of the additional red tape and stuff like that involved in her actually being able to prove who she is to cast a ballot. And then the outcome and the vision is that we have a chance again to stop this before it gets to the ballot. That people can get involved and get informed so that they know before they sign, and to increase voter access and reduce barriers for all voters rather than making it harder. Because ultimately, all of the things that I know I have worked on and for over the last several years has been about increasing our access and our security and everything at the ballot, and making it easier and making it less criminalized to actually cast your vote. So different things from my story came out of thinking about it in both directions, whether it was the story of us now or story of myself, us and now. Yep, thank you, versus like the outcome challenge and all of that. So we're gonna pause for a moment because we've been talking a lot.
And more
there's
questions
food here.
Yes.
But yes, does anybody have questions before we take a break? And then after this, we're gonna kind of come together. We're gonna start crafting and sharing our stories together, and kind of walking through it as a team.
But I would say questions and just some feedback, right? Like, how does this resonate with you? Or any questions about, anything that we've shared? Yes, Marcus. Go give
The
it.
bad, the ugly, whatever you got.
I know you give it.
Yeah, because I'm like, you know what my ultimate goal is.
Yep.
So I'm not thinking just this year. I'm thinking on the
Long term.
line, and I don't want to go back to wait as big as a junior. So, are we like when we build up leaders, right? Are we training them? And I'm thinking long term through agitations, through healing, and things like that, so that we don't have someone who's to tell an important story like this, but run into an agitation and may shrink. I'm telling you, it happened to me before.
Absolutely.
So, I'm wondering if it's like, is that something that you see down the line?
I think it very much has to be. I think, like, especially when we think in terms of organizing and what is organizing, and in many ways we've seen organizing die, right?
Yeah.
The way that we were brought into this space. And so part of that is making sure that we're sharing this, not just like with us, with this group, but it's something that we're bringing into a larger space. We all have different organizations, faith groups, that we're all connected with. And I think this is also an opportunity to say to them, hey, can we have this, that this training that we're doing? We would love to know if this is something we could bring in this space. And I think we can really make this, like, share this, right? Make this connecting tissue, so that we can be sharing this and getting more folks to know this.
And if there's anybody here who don't know what I mean by agitations, I mean, we living in a time now where we have the kind of attack that we have on our democracy now. I'm thinking like the same kind of agitation that Schnick was doing when they get ready to do a lunch city. Not saying we're gonna go pouring milk on people. I mean, I'm just saying that, but we have to now we have to be bold. I feel like we have to be bolder. I feel like we have to take risks, because ain't nobody coming to save us.
Yeah, facts.
And that's where I'm at right
No, and I think you are spot on to something. But one of that is giving people the tools to be able to use. So we just don't go straight from, let's storm the hall. Hey, like, we ride at dawn, y'all. Like, we not gonna go straight to that. But what it is giving people the tools so that we can, because we all have different ways that we're being activated.
So maybe somebody did, like, they were on social media and all of a sudden they were like, oh my God, there's a protest today and I had no idea and I've never done this before, but I'm going to go and I'm going to do this because this is so important. Maybe they get out there and there are, independent journalists or the news, like the actual news is out there and they're capturing stories and they're like, tell us why we're out here today.
Right.
If you haven't thought about this stuff yet, you might not be able to get your story out there, or you might you might kind of shoot yourself in the foot a little bit.
Absolutely.
So getting people to start thinking about these things early and often is so important. And not everybody's going to be comfortable sharing their story. It's not even safe for everybody to share their
That's
story.
right.
So everybody has to make that decision on their own. But I am of the opinion, and this is again coming from a privileged place, is that I will put myself on the line because I know that this is really important, and I want people to know about what's happening, whether it's with documentary proof of citizenship or what's happening with any part of what's happening in our society right now. But it can, again, be dangerous for folks, and so we need to give them that space to say, maybe it's not time for me to share my story, or maybe I'm not sharing it on social media with a video in my face. Maybe I'm going to write an anonymous op-ed or something like that.
Or I'm gonna activate other people
Yep, to
also
do the
that I
same.
know that care.
Yep.
So TQ.
Thank you so much. Hey everybody. I was gonna say, kind of the storytelling piece and what you said kind of go hand in hand. Something that I'm learning as a young adult organizer in the community is that you've got to take like multiple tactics and kind of simultaneously to be effective. So there are people, I'm learning there's spaces in organizing where there are people that are the agitators, but then there are people that we need to tell the story, because if we don't tell the story or tell our story, someone else will shape the narrative
That's
for
right.
us. And that's a huge
All
problem
the
right now
time.
with young people. They're going off of what they see on social media, or maybe what they researched in Google, not really realizing that or ChatGPT, but not really realizing that, you know, that may not necessarily be the fact. So I think now more than ever, it's important to not only agitate and not only share a story, but get them to spaces like these that allow them the opportunity to understand why storytelling plays a tremendous role in the agitation, in the way in which, because some creatives are putting it in their music, right? Or in entertainment and things like that. But it's the way in which we tell our story that we got to get back to, so that they understand why the agitation matters. Similar to what you said, they could be at an action and they could be doing the protest or the sit-in, but then it shouldn't just stop there. They should have the Detroit Free Press. They should have the other folks that are there to capture that story, so you can say, oh, here's why we're doing the sit-in, and let that circulate to more people, while also, after that sit-in, you come back to a deeper conversation. You say, we're going to keep sharing our story, we're going to keep sharing our story so that people understand. A lot of young people it's not enough of us in these spaces to have this engagement, this dialogue. And I think if anything, before we get to the agitation, we've got to allow them to get to a place of understand, why are you mad to begin with? And that's the storytelling piece that I think
Absolutely.
I would say two things, and I really, really appreciate that, because one, I think we just kind of, I think a lot of us probably naturally do this when we're in spaces with other people, is, hey, I'm Shannon, who brought you here today, but that's because I'm an organizer, right? And so like, I'm going up and I'm talking to people and I'm actively engaging them and asking them, what got you here, right? That is the first step in getting people to think about their story when they're doing an action. And they don't even realize that you're doing that to them, but because you're already putting that noodle in their head, now later if somebody does come up with a camera and is like, hey, would you mind answering some questions? They've already started putting those words in, they've already formed them to some capacity. Maybe they didn't do it right the first time when they were talking to you, but they've been thinking about, like, yeah, why actually am I
And
here?
it's something I consistently am crafting. Like, it's not just you do it once and it's done. We are it's consistently evolving.
Absolutely. And I had something else to say and I can't remember what it was already, but go ahead.
I just wanted to add, you want to prepare so that, to your point, you need to, before you even tell your story, know the opposition, know what they're going to come at you with, so that you're prepared to answer, okay? That's all part of your story.
That's right.
Yeah. What are you trying to get out of it, and what is the opposition doing? And here's the thing that I was thinking about. So earlier today, this has to do with the stuff going on with ICE. I saw a post on social media where somebody was saying, she was recording a video saying, we have to talk about how much information we're giving out. Totally agree with that, right? And then she kept talking. She's like, you're talking in your stories and on social media about how you have an immigrant neighbor. No, you don't. You are talking about people who are this. No, you don't. And yes, to an extent, because if you don't share stories, one, you don't want to share somebody else's story for them.
That.
You can be generalized about things and still get your point across.
Mhm.
But if we aren't sharing and saying, I do have these people in my community that I care about, then people are going to shape that narrative for you, just like what you were saying. And so, yes, we do have to be careful in this time about the information that we're sharing. But I personally do not want to see people pretending that immigrants don't exist in our communities and that they're not our neighbors.
Or
I
that we
wanna-
have non-citizens
Exactly.
doing all this voting that's not existing.
Exactly. Absolutely. And so think about what that looks like for you in your community and the safety for your community, but don't share personal information about other people. Let them share their own story. Don't say, my neighbor Tina. You're gonna say, I have people in my community that live near me that I care about this impacts, right? So really start to do some self-reflection and digging on that because all of our communities are different.
I have a question for that. So if you're not describing Tina, is it okay to describe maybe things about Tina? Like I have this neighbor in my community, she's this, she's that, or she came up to me and expressed this to me, this is why okay.
Yeah, well, and that's the thing. I've heard so many people, even inviting people to this event, is, well, I'm not impacted this, so I don't really need, like, my story wouldn't be very good. But maybe you do have a neighbor, Tina, that would be impacted, and you can say, you know what? I care about this because I do know somebody. I'm not going to tell you who that person is, but Tina and but that person and I, we had a conversation, and these things impact her. It's the same thing I'm doing with my sister. Now, mine is a little bit more direct because you can find out who my sister is if you really wanted to. But before I share that publicly, I talked to my sister about it too, and she was totally okay with that. And so either getting permission from the person that you're sharing information about, or just saying, you know, I've learned how this could impact this person that I care about, and that's why I'm doing this. Because I do know people that could be impacted by X, Y, and Z. I'm not going to tell you their life story, that's their job, but this is why I'm here, because I do know people.
All right, well, with that, shall we
Yeah.
say food
Yep,
is here.
we're gonna take about a half hour. We'll come
Yeah.
back here about
Salad, chicken dressing,
So good to see you,
and rice, chicken. The only challenge.
Are we live on something?
Oh, we're just recording. Yeah, you're good. Don't worry, we'll cut your stuff out. I just don't want to forget to do it.
Hey everybody, nice to meet you. My name is Jelani. I'm one of the co-owners of Pages Bookshop. And actually, I kind of wanted to, well, I'll ask you, would you like me to speak with you transformationally or transactionally? Transformationally.
She said obvious, right?
I asked specifically because transformation takes longer than transaction. So it depends on what your values are.
Yeah.
So I'm very happy to host people not politicians or
Voters, not politicians, and there's a whole bunch of us, a whole bunch of words. Yeah.
I'm very happy to host you here. This is one of the reasons why I thought that becoming a co-owner of Pages would be so powerful, because there isn't really any need to ban books if nobody reads them. My kind of experience with community organizing comes from like right after I graduated from college. Do you guys remember ShotSpotter? Is anybody around that time? Because that was one of the first things that I organized against. They were trying to use like ARPA funds against ShotSpotter, and so I got involved with We the People Michigan, and we had what is it called when a press conference type of thing, downtown. And I was like very interested in it, and they said no to that, but then they decided to fund it, just not without ARPA dollars. And I had this conversation with our organizer. I was like, I feel like we're playing Tom and Jerry, but we don't have the plot armor, and sometimes Jerry does get me. And so that's why my first recommendation is Mexicans on the Moon. This is a collection of poetry. I'm actually sad to have to, shout this out because I just got one copy today. I haven't looked at it yet. But that was recommended to me by one of our customers as utopian fiction written from the perspective of immigrants. And I think specifically about that, and I tell you that story with this book because I like to think about the goal more so than resistance. And when you think about what you do want, you get to be Tom and not Jerry. Jerry is always running away. Jerry only has to fail once. You can have 100 episodes. Jerry can win 99% of the time. Only has to trip only has to trip once. So when you start to think about what you achieve and what you want, then you get to be Tom. So that's why this is my first book, and I like to kind of always talk with my organizing imagination with utopia. So Mexican woman.
What's the last name that you're on?
Oh, Eniguez.
He came from a place.
Okay.
Yep, and that's the editor. It's multiple different poets.
Okay.
Mini Constitution. We have mini constitutions. It's very helpful.
I need those.
This is Babel by R.F. Kuang. I just read this last year. This is a dark academia fantasy where the magic system is based on the difference between synonyms across two different languages and the magic that occurs between the things that are untranslatable. And it's all in all just a metaphor for imperialism and why imperialism needs other cultures in order to derive its power. This is Erasure by Percival Everett. Has anyone seen American Fiction?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. This is the book of American Fiction. It was a book first, and if you don't know, Erasure is really about how capitalism intersects with the stories we're allowed to tell, and who is centered and highlighted. This is We Do This Till We Free Us by Miriam Kaba, Abolitionist Organizing and Transforming Justice. I haven't read this yet, but a lot of our customers really like it, so I just wanted to send it. We have some signed copies of A Protest History of the United States by Gloria J. Brown Marshall. She was here, she was our last event of December. And she was, this is a wealth of knowledge. It talks about protesting on this land from the time of the indigenous peoples interacting with Christopher Columbus all the way up until like the 2020s. And it's just a wealth of knowledge and history that we can continue to learn from. And then the last author that I have is Shaka Senghor, who is a local author. This is his newest book, How to Be Free. If you don't know anything about Shaka Senghor, he was incarcerated for, I want to say, 12 years, at least 12 years. He was incarcerated, but he kind of centers this book by saying, I was incarcerated before I was in jail. I was incarcerated before I was in prison, and I was free before I left prison. And so it's really about the definition of freedom from his perspective. And he is now a voters' rights activist, nationally known now. But yeah, he came from like,
How to Be Free.
came from right here, like Joy Road. Like his book is like right around the corner.
Nice.
What is
So-
the author?
Shaka Senghor. Yeah, these are some of the books that I wanted to highlight and a little bit about me. So thank you so much.
Yes. Well, one, I want to give a huge thank you for having them let us use this space today. Number one, letting us take over the space, honestly. But also, that was a great example of sharing your story. You see how quickly he was like, "This is why I did it," and that was his transformational version of it. Like he really took us through why he's here and doing this work. So our next thing that we have up is an activity. If I can find my mouse, there we go. So our first activity, we actually have 3. Our first activity is actually starting to put pen to paper here. We do have some clipboards. We have some paper. Obviously, we gave you some things at the check-in table when you first got here. So feel free to write on those, take them with you, that sort of thing. But we want you to actually start putting pen to paper and writing your story down. What is your story of you? What's the story of us? What's the story of now that we're trying to get to when it comes to strict voter ID laws and documentary proof of citizenship in our communities? So we're going to take a little bit of time to do that. If anybody needs a pen, paper, clipboard, anything, let us know. The next activity we'll do is around our social media toolkit campaign, and then we also, again, have a videographer back here who is capturing stories. For anybody who maybe already knows their story and just wants to hop right over and share it right now, you are more than welcome to. But let's take maybe 5 to 7 minutes right now to start putting some things on paper, and I'm going to ask one of you when we're done here to raise your hand and to share some of the notes that you wrote down with the folks that are here. All right. Love if you guys could, one, just kind of tell us how this feels actually putting it in writing notes down or writing it in paragraphs or however you did it. How does this feel? I see it. It's all right, right? Yeah. Did anybody feel uncomfortable doing it or didn't know where to start? Yeah. I always struggle with where to start myself. Did anybody start? I see people still writing, so it looks like people started getting on a roll. Like, I feel like once you start writing it down, then you're like, oh yeah, and this, and this, and this. And then you can kind of start paring it down for the purpose that you want to share your story for once you get it all out there initially. Is anybody comfortable? We actually are going to be giving away a little prize for the first person or that is willing to kind of raise their hand and share what they wrote down. You want to tell people about these?
He's doing it.
Yeah, nice.
My name is Norman Clement. I'm the founder of DCI, Detroit Change Initiative. Voting is important to me because it's a way that you can hold your elected officials accountable. I believe that in the past, impacted barriers were that voting was only on one day. So folks of ours, we used to have to work, go short of work. That means you only go when the polls open. If the line's too long, that means they have to rush out of work to go vote to the middle of the night. So, and also the notifications, the barriers of where the polling locations were pretty stringent back then. And so you didn't know where your poll was until you showed up. The ballot petitions, concerning about me is what ID determines that you're a citizen. So Real Michigan has a real ID that you gotta have a birth certificate, but they said now you need a birth certificate. So if you have a real ID with a star on there, but now you gotta show your birth certificate, that's like a double jeopardy. So who's determining the rules of what's an ID, who's not an ID? That's concerning. It'll affect people in the community because most women who are married, my wife, she'll have a hard time voting because she'll have to bring her wedding certificate and all that stuff, and also name will change, stuff like that, and bringing the passport, proving she was. A lot of difference. A lot of married women who are changing their names are women who are seeking refuge from bad relationships. People have a hard time voting, and so that's one thing that's about this bill. On returning citizens do not get the documents back when they come from home. So they don't have the IDs, they don't get the passports. They're supposed to get all that, but they do not. And so some of our returning citizens won't have no documentation, and so they'll be able not to vote. What does having freedom to vote mean to you? I'm unsure because this never happened because we keep having to vote in the 15th Amendment on every so long. It should be a constitutional amendment locked in the Constitution. I don't know why is it an amendment instead of a law in the Constitution. So I feel unsure about that because we should not be doing this every 20 or 30 years. It should be locked in the Constitution. Hopefully they should look at it. Voting rights being taken away, angry. If the protections were stronger, I think things were locked in the Constitution. Instead of up interpretation, like you change the Constitution all the time, I'll feel secure in that system. But I think that is something that I'm still trying to have trouble to see how that fits. Calling the actual lawmakers, really just do their job. Do their job, what the people sent you there to do. Not go there to I understand you have to make compromise, but some compromises, if you roll away on reproductive freedom, that should be the first bill in, not the last or negotiating about. The message I can send to the folks who are hearing this story is that think about folks who are in that situation. Even though you're not in that situation, think about people that who you are. And you're a lot closer to what you think you are. That's what my message is.
Absolutely.
Norman, that was incredibly comprehensive.
It was.
He's very knowledgeable. You may not all have the knowledge of Norman, but it's super great to be in the room with him. And we appreciate it, Norman. So we're going to give you this $40 gift card. Pages Bookshop, our gracious host. So if you need to buy a book for anyone, feel free to stick around. They do sell gift cards at the front desk, and we're super grateful.
Yeah. So one of the things, we give these guiding questions to get you starting to think about these things. So everything that you shared there, you weren't trying to craft it into a full story right then. But all of those things that you shared took about 4 minutes to answer, right? So what does that look like when you're talking to somebody, or if you're in an interview, or if you're just knocking doors and talking to the community, or you're out and about and you see somebody with a clipboard that's trying to collect signatures, and you're like, hey, before you put your name on that, I want you to read it, because this is my understanding of what it looks like, and I'm really concerned, and this is how it can impact me, or whatever that looks like for you. And I heard hope in there. I heard your vision of the future. I heard a call to action, and I heard why you care about these things and how you and maybe your wife and other people might be impacted. So this is what we're really trying to get y'all to think about with this. So our next exercise is talking about social media and usable content, because we want to be able to hit people on social media. We want to be able to get them in newspapers. We want to be able to get them, going to town hall resolution hearings and stuff like that, and saying this is why it matters to me, and I want you all to do a resolution about this so that you can come out and say, this community feels this way. We want you to be able to get comfortable doing anything from a 30-second to 3-minute video. The toolkit that I'm about to share with you is it gives you up to 1 minute 30 to be able to share your story. But this is a really, really great tool.
Welcome to our Storytelling Toolkit. This tool makes it easy to share your story and make your voice heard. First, swipe through the captions and select your favorite. Some can be used on different platforms like TikTok, Instagram, and Twitter. Choose your favorite. Anything works. Next, read the instructions carefully. Make sure you're in a quiet space with good lighting so you're not disturbed and can easily be heard. Now, allow your camera access, if you haven't done this already. Then, read the prompt, think about your answer, and select record. The prompt will stay there while you're recording, in case you forget or you want to add more. Once you've finished, if you don't like it, you can re-record. When you're happy with your video, select Share. Choose Instagram or whichever platform you chose previously. If the text isn't there automatically, tap the screen and paste it. You can change the size of it so it's easier to see you. Once you're done with that, select Share.
So this is a super easy toolkit. The toolkit is from a company called Sosha. This is being provided by our partners at Vote Riders. Vote Riders is an amazing organization that helps people get connected to the documents that they need to be able to vote and do other things. They even help track down documents for people who can't find their birth certificates, or like maybe they've moved multiple times, or they didn't get one when they were a kid or something like that. They help people pay for them if they need to and things like that. They're a wonderful nonprofit organization.
And you can, go ahead.
And just to add, so we do have these postcards too.
That have the QR code, yep.
Real quick question, I want to share an audio platform.
Yeah, definitely. I would encourage you to do that. I believe it'll allow you to save it and share it to multiple
Yeah, so
sources.
you can, you'll see, like for me, I was logged into my Instagram, I was logged into my Facebook, I'm still on Twitter, don't make fun of me, actually you should make fun of me. But so because I was logged in, when I logged into the app, I could just click on those options and share it. You might have to log into your app, into your preferred app. The other thing I wanted to clarify, you can copy and paste the text, but if you want to write your own caption, which most of you probably will, you can write your own caption, whether that's on Instagram or Facebook or TikTok. So just wanted to make sure that we clarify that. We're using the hashtag #HandsOffMyVote.
MI.
So
yeah.
MI vote, get it? Right, we're so clever. We'll share that out more. It's actually, I think it's going to take off. It might not. We'll see. But people seem to like it, so you can use hashtags if you want, and we'll set out more materials.
Yeah.
But,
So we're going to encourage everybody to take a couple minutes and record your story if you're comfortable doing that right now using the social toolkit. And Ben has another gift card for the first person to do it as well.
if you want to do it in front of the room, which is a scary thing, but
Showing.
we have some great people here.
What is it for, like the questions?
Yeah, just being able to share why documentary proof of citizenship and the issue of it matters to you.
I know you can do it.
Yep.
So
Okay.
just-
We got one back
We have a
here.
winner.
Right?
What, do it right in front of the room? Do we want to do it after the trial or right now? Do you want?
You know what I can do before we do that? We'll take you back there. Everybody can, if you're comfortable with people kind of watching. I'll also share what our next activity is so that people can maybe start getting in line for that too. So our third activity then is to actually practice sharing your story with our videographers who will kind of guide you through impromptu questions. One of the things that I do want to share is we are recording these videos. We are sharing them with our trusted partner teams, which I'll show you a list of before we wrap up here today too. But everybody that's hosting here today, people that we know are not going to abuse your story. And that's one of the reasons we had you sign off on those release forms earlier. We could use these for ads up and through the election. We might use these as social media posts. We might, I don't know, some people might get quoted and popped on a billboard or something like that. But we will also communicate with you about sharing your story as well. But this is a really great way for us to help each other amplify all of this, and some of our organizations have communications budgets that can help pay to boost the stories for folks as well. So definitely join back here, talk to our videographers, get your story captured while you're here, and
Did we want to have someone demonstrate first?
Yes.
Or-
Yes.
yeah,
Okay.
Katie.
She seems excited to do
Yes.
this. It is helpful. So.
Yes.
Oh, thank you. So do I just stand?
Yeah, do you actually have your phone with you to be able to connect it on your social? Are you comfortable like actually recording
Or
right
we
now?
can simulate it. Whatever.
Okay, yeah, you can
Whatever.
simulate it if you want. Yeah, that's cool.
Because I don't really know.
That's
Oh,
okay.
that's okay. It's still good to. Yeah.
I don't know, but when you
We can record using one of ours when we're done, but yeah, just go ahead and
Yeah.
share.
All right.
Yeah.
My name is Katie, and I have a ring. I'm the 5th generation female in my family to have this ring. It came to me from my great aunt, and then from my great grandma, and then my grandmother, and then my mother. It gets passed down when you turn 30, and so at some point I'm going to give this ring to one of my nieces when she turns 30. The first 2 women to wear this ring did not have the ability to vote. And I'll be damned if in the 5th generation I'm going to let go of the ability to vote, particularly when I'm going to be passing it on to the next generation. So this is a reminder to me that I'm going to be passing on the right to vote to the next generation.
Love that. That's great. And that was simple. That was probably about 30 seconds to 45 seconds, which
It's
is
so,
ideal.
yeah, it's something to know. You can have your call to action in the video, or you can put it in the caption, or you can kind of combine the two. Because there, you might not have heard a call to action like vote no on this, or let's stop the ballot measure. But she can always put that to the caption. And frankly, I think in some ways, like it's more powerful to just say, "Hey, I'm talking for a minute about voting rights and access to voting for women." So it comes. You can approach this different ways, but just wanted to let you know about that option where if you don't want to put the call to action in your video, but you want to put it in writing, you can always do that.
And put it in in the font, the text
Yeah.
of the body, and just sell your story. And that was 45 seconds, and it was powerful.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So Ben has 2 more things to give away. So we're gonna be able to give away another gift card for somebody who is willing to share their story with a professional videographer. I know we've already had a few people do that. And then we also Ben is looking for people who will do op-eds, which are opinion editorials essentially, where you basically write up your story, why it matters to you, in something that's a little bit more of like a medium length article, I guess. And we work with you to try to get it published with one of the newspapers as an opinion piece. So Ben, you want to talk a little bit more about that and how they can connect with you?
Yeah, so you know, we're able to work with you if depending on what you want. If you want to bring us a draft, we can talk to you about some suggested angles, potential angles, and topics. If you want to just talk about kind of all, like sort of like what Norman was talking about when he shared out the widespread impact, you can do that. And then once you have your preferred approach, you can either write us a draft, and we can work with our communications folks to help edit it and make sure that it fits the character and word limit for the newspapers. Or we're happy to kind of take what you tell us and draft something, and then have you edit it to fit your voice. Whatever your preferred approach is. But we would like to submit these to different newspapers in the form of op-eds and letters to the editor. And then hopefully get other people to see that and say, I want to do the same thing. So you'll have to come up with your angle today, but we are looking for someone to commit to doing this, and then we can follow up and work with you on it. So does that sound you want to do?
Yep.
Okay, awesome.
All right.
I'll give you my card. We'll follow up. Too. No, awesome.
All right. So if y'all are willing to get in line to share your story over there, and maybe while you're
Welcome
waiting,
to
if you
our
wanna
story-
walk around. I'm gonna move
Welcome
us
to our
around
storytelling.
Feel free to scan this QR code and start recording your story for social media. We are also here to help support you while we are here. But we want to just kind of let you loose to start working on things on your own and ask for what you need. Any questions? No? All right. I'll pop this back up in a quick second, but before I get too far, we will do a quick wrap up, and I will share some additional resources with y'all. We will be sharing these slides out as well.
Welcome to our storytelling.